My name is Lauren Hartley, and I'm 32 years old. On the Saturday afternoon of my own baby shower, I stood in my dining room holding a tray of lemon bars, staring at 40 empty folding chairs and a banner that said, "Welcome Baby Hartley," in gold letters my mother-in-law had picked out herself. And I realized I could hear the ice melting in the punch bowl, because that's how quiet the house was. For 3 weeks, my husband's family had told me the same thing. We wouldn't miss it for the world. My mother-in-law, Diane, had texted me a heart emoji every time I mentioned the date. My sister-in-law, Kelsey, had asked twice what colors I was doing so she could coordinate. I believed them the way you believe a weather forecast that promises sun. I had no reason not to. At noon, my own side of the family filled the room. My mom, my aunts, my 2 closest friends from work, but the Hartley side of the guest list sat empty, chair after chair, like a mouth missing every other tooth. I checked my phone under the table more times than I want to admit. Nothing. Not a text, not a call, not even the group chat where Diane usually posted a countdown sticker the morning of anything. By 2 o'clock, my friend Priya leaned over and whispered, "Have you heard from Tyler's mom?" And I said the thing you say when you're still protecting people who haven't earned it. "She's probably just running late." I smiled through the diaper raffle game. I smiled when we cut the little pastel cake. I smiled so hard, my face ached by the time the last guest hugged me goodbye at 4, glancing at the door one more time out of habit. My husband Tyler got home from the lake house at 6, sunburned across the nose, smelling like campfire. And I remember standing in my own kitchen, still wearing the maternity dress I'd bought specifically for that day, watching him set his duffel bag down like nothing in the world had happened. "How was it?" I asked, and I meant the shower, and for 1 second I actually thought maybe there'd been a family emergency, a flat tire, something forgivable. He didn't answer right away. He was scrolling his phone, laughing quietly at something, and then he turned the screen toward me without thinking. The way you show someone a funny video before your brain catches up to what's on it. It was his mother's Instagram, a photo of the whole Hartley side, Diane, Kelsey, his dad, his 2 brothers, gathered around a fire pit 12 minutes from our own house, mugs raised, the lake behind them gold and still in the evening light. And underneath, in Diane's familiar, cheerful caption font, 7 words I would end up reading more times than I've read anything in my life. Finally, a quiet weekend. LOL. I looked at the picture for a long time. I looked at the 8 missed nothing on my phone from a family who had told me for 3 weeks they wouldn't miss it. I set my phone face down on the counter, and I didn't say a word, because there was one thing about that lake house that Diane had clearly forgotten I knew. Let me back up, because you need to know who was standing in that kitchen holding a phone with someone else's Saturday on it. I'm a financial planner. I run my own small practice out of a converted sunroom in our house in Birchwood, Minnesota, 12 minutes from the lake house that photo was taken at. I have 18 clients, a filing system Tyler still doesn't fully understand, and a habit of reading every document twice before I sign it, because numbers don't lie. But people forget to mention things all the time. Tyler's father built that lake house in the 90s, back when lumber was cheap and the lake wasn't lined with vacation rentals yet. When he passed 4 years ago, the property went into a family trust so nobody would have to fight over it. I know this because I'm the one who set the trust up. I did it for free the year Tyler and I got married, because his mother cried at my kitchen table and said she didn't trust lawyers, she trusted family, and I was already practically family, wasn't I? For 4 years, I've paid the property taxes on that lake house out of a joint account Tyler barely checks. I've renewed the insurance every spring. 2 winters ago, when a pipe burst in the guest bathroom, I was the one on the phone with the plumber at 7 in the morning while Diane was still asleep an hour away. Nobody asked me to do any of it. Somebody just had to, and I have never once been the kind of person who lets something fall through the cracks, even when it isn't technically mine to catch. I found out I was pregnant in February. I remember calling Diane first before I'd even told my own mother, because I wanted her to have that moment. She cried happy tears on the phone and said, "We are going to spoil this baby rotten." And I believed her the way I believe most things Diane says with her whole chest. The shower had been Kelsey's idea, actually. She'd offered to help plan it back in March, standing in my kitchen with a Pinterest board already pulled up on her phone. "It'll be small," she said. "Just family and your closest friends. Nothing fussy." I remember feeling touched that she wanted to be involved, since Kelsey and I had never been especially close. Not out of any conflict, just 2 people who married into the same family and were still learning each other's rhythms. What I didn't know, standing in my kitchen holding Tyler's phone that Saturday evening, was that somewhere around May, 3 weeks before the invitations even went out, a decision had already been made without me in the room for it. A decision about the lake house, about the summer, about exactly who belonged at that fire pit and who didn't. I set the phone down on the counter, gently, the way you set down something you don't want to shatter in your hand. Tyler was still talking. Something about the drive back, the traffic on Highway 35. I wasn't really listening anymore. I was thinking about the folder in my office, the one with the trust documents in it, the one none of them had ever asked to see, because for 4 years, nobody had needed to. That night, after Tyler fell asleep, still smelling faintly of campfire smoke, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop and did the one thing I do better than almost anyone I know. I opened a browser tab and started reading a paper trail as calmly as I read a client's tax return. I didn't have to dig far. Diane had never learned to log out of the family email account she and Tyler's late father had shared for the lake house bookings. The same account I'd used 4 years ago to file the trust paperwork. I told myself I was only checking the insurance renewal date. That was true for about 40 seconds. Sitting near the top of the inbox was a thread titled Lake House Summer Plan. Started the second week of May. Kelsey, Diane, Tyler's 2 brothers, all of them. I read it top to bottom twice. The way you reread a number that doesn't add up the first time. Kelsey, May 9th. Should we tell Lauren about the shower date before or after we finalize the weekend? Diane, same day, after. She'll want to come up here too. And honestly, this trip isn't really for her. It's for us to talk everything through before the baby changes things. I sat very still in my kitchen chair. Before the baby changes things, I kept reading. Further down, from Tyler's older brother Mark, dated 3 weeks before my shower. Has anyone actually looked at what Dad's trust says about the property once there's a grandchild? Diane's reply, 12 minutes later. That's exactly what we need to sort out this weekend. No lawyers, just us. Lauren set the whole thing up, so she basically knows it inside and out, which is why I don't want her in the room for this conversation. She'll just complicate it with details. I read that line maybe 6 times. She'll just complicate it with details. That was my crime, apparently. Not carelessness, not cruelty. Precision. I called my mother the next morning, not for advice, just to hear a voice that had never once made me feel like a complication. She listened to the whole thing without interrupting, which is rare for her, and then she said something I've thought about every day since. Honey, you built the fence around that property with your own 2 hands. You don't need permission to walk through the gate. That afternoon, I drove to my office and pulled the original trust file, the one I hadn't opened in 2 years because there had never been a reason to. I sat at my desk and read every page of my own handiwork as a stranger would, start to finish, the way I should have read that email thread from the beginning. And there, on page 4, in language I had written myself, calm and precise, sat the exact clause the whole Hartley family had spent a weekend at a fire pit trying to work around without me. A clause that meant whatever they decided up at that lake house, without lawyers, without me in the room, wasn't decided at all. I closed the folder and looked out my office window for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and did something I hadn't done once since Saturday. I texted Diane. 3 words. We should talk. Diane wanted to come to my house. I told her no, gently, the way you decline a client who wants to sign something without reading it first. I asked for the lake house instead. This Sunday, everyone there, in daylight, the same table where they'd apparently decided I complicated things. Tyler drove us up in silence. He clearly didn't understand yet. I hadn't told him about the email thread. I wanted him to hear it the same way everyone else would. They were all there when we pulled in. Diane at the porch table with a pitcher of lemonade she'd made out of habit. Kelsey beside her, Mark and his wife by the fire pit that hadn't fully cooled from 3 weekends of use. Diane stood up smiling, the same smile from every photo, and said, Lauren, honey, we've missed you. And I let that sentence sit in the air for a second before I answered it. You didn't miss me, I said. You planned around me. I set the folder on the porch table, the way you set down something you don't want to shatter. I didn't raise my voice. I never have needed to. I opened it to page 4 and turned it so the whole table could read it. And I read the clause out loud once, slowly, because I wanted no one at that table to ever say later that they hadn't understood. Any change to use, sale, or division of this property requires written consent from all listed trustees, including the trustee's spouse, while a minor grandchild is a named beneficiary. I looked at Diane. You made me a trustee 4 years ago because you didn't trust lawyers. You trusted family. This baby is the reason that clause exists at all. Whatever you decided at that fire pit isn't decided. It's just a conversation you had without me in the room. Nobody touched the lemonade. Kelsey looked at her hands. Mark looked at the lake. And Diane, to her credit, didn't reach for a denial. She sat back down slowly and said, We didn't want to hurt you. We thought if the baby changed how the property got used, It would be easier to agree on it first, quietly, and just tell you after. Easier for who? I said, not unkindly. I was 3 weeks pregnant, sitting at my own shower, checking my phone for a family that decided I was a complication before you'd even planned my invitations. Diane's eyes filled, and for once I let the silence hold instead of rushing to fill it for her, the way I'd filled every gap in this family for 4 years. I'm sorry, she finally said. And it was the first time in 3 weeks anyone in that family had said those 2 words to me without a reason attached. I didn't hand her the folder back right away. I told her the trust stays exactly as written, that I'll always sign in good faith for anything done in the open, in a room with me in it, and that the price of my trust from here on is simple. No more decisions made about me without me. 6 weeks later, our daughter was born on a Tuesday in October. Diane was in the waiting room, first one there, holding a blanket she'd knitted herself. No lake house plans in her pocket, no version of the story that left me out of the room. Being family was never supposed to mean being the last to know.